You have spent your entire life searching for yourself in stories that were never written for you. You read Greek mythology and recognized fragments. Athena's wisdom, Persephone's descent, Cassandra's curse, but none of them held the whole of what you are. The stories felt like borrowed clothes that almost fit but never quite do. And somewhere beneath the disappointment, you began to suspect something. Perhaps you were not meant to find yourself in someone else's myth. Perhaps you were meant to write your own. Welcome to power and myth. What Jung called individuation, the ancients understood as becoming the author of your own mythic narrative. This is not metaphor, it is the psychological work of recognizing that your life is not random chaos, but a coherent story with archetypal patterns, recurring themes, and a trajectory that toward the one who operates outside established hierarchies, who cannot be categorized by existing frameworks, who exists in a category of one. But that label is still borrowed language. What we are exploring today is deeper. We are exploring how you construct the mythology that explains you to yourself. Greek myths were never meant to be instruction manuals for your particular consciousness. They were stories told by a specific culture in a specific time to make sense of their world. Athena emerged fully formed from Zeus's head because the Greeks needed a story about wisdom that bypassed the feminine entirely. Persephone descended to the underworld because ancient agricultural societies needed to explain the seasons. These are powerful archetypal patterns, yes, but they are not your patterns. The Sigma INFJ who tries to live inside someone else's mythology ends up performing a role rather than inhabiting their own truth. You become a character in a story that does not quite fit the shape of your actual experience. And this is exhausting in ways that are difficult to name. You find yourself constantly translating. The myth says, the hero returns transformed and welcomed. But you returned and found no place at the table. The myth says the oracle is revered. But you speak what you see and are called paranoid. The stories promise that depth is rewarded. Your experience suggests otherwise. This dissonance is not failure, it is the beginning of understanding that you are not meant to fit the existing myths. You are meant to recognize the mythic structure beneath your own life and give it language. Jung understood that every individual life is a unique manifestation of archetypal patterns. The wounded healer exists across cultures and time, but the specific wound you carry, the particular way it has shaped you, the precise gift it has become, that is yours alone. Your personal mythology is not a rejection of archetypal psychology. It is archetypal psychology taken seriously. It is the recognition that whilst the patterns are universal, the story you are living is singular. No one else has walked your exact path. No one else carries your specific inheritance. And no pre-written myth, no matter how beautiful, can capture what it means to be you. The work of constructing your personal mythology begins with recognizing the recurring patterns in your life, not as random events, but as chapters in a coherent narrative. You have been the seeker more than once. The one who senses there is something more but has not yet found it. Childhood felt like exile from a place you could not name. Adolescence was a pilgrimage through social roles that never quite fit. Adulthood has been the slow recognition that you are not lost. You are simply walking a path that has no map because no one has walked it before you. This is the seeker's inheritance. Ordinary life feels like waiting for something that has not yet arrived. And the mythology you are writing is the story of that search, not as tragedy but as the hero's journey in its most essential form. You have also been the exile, not once but repeatedly. You have stood at the edge of every community you have ever entered, never quite inside, never quite outside, always watching, always translating, always aware that you belong nowhere because you belong everywhere and therefore nowhere at all. The Greek myths have exiles, Oedipus wandering after Thebes, Odysseus lost at sea. But their exile had an ending, yours does not, because your exile is not a punishment for a crime you committed. It is the structure of your consciousness itself. You perceive too much, you feel too deeply. You cannot unsee what you have seen, and so you remain permanently on the threshold. The mythology you are writing honours this. It does not frame exile as something to overcome. It frames it as the territory you inhabit. The exile is not waiting to come home. The exile is at home in the liminal space itself. The shadow side of constructing your personal mythology is the temptation toward grandiosity. If you are the author of your own myth, if your story is singular, if no existing framework captures you, it becomes easy to slide into believing you are more important than you are. This is the trap. Personal mythology is not about elevating yourself above others. It is about taking responsibility for the story you are living. It is about recognizing that your life has meaning and structure, that your struggles are not random, that your patterns are worth naming. But it does not make you special in the sense of being superior. It makes you specific, and specificity is not the same as supremacy. Jung warned against this. He called it inflation, the moment when you identify with the archetype rather than recognizing yourself as one manifestation of it. You are not the wounded healer. You are a wounded healer, one of many across time and culture who have carried pain and transformed it into a gift. Your personal mythology holds your unique expression of that pattern, but it does not make you the only one. The Sigma INFJ framing can feed this inflation if you are not careful. It whispers that you are outside all hierarchies because you are above them. But the truth is more subtle. You are outside hierarchies because you perceive their artificiality, because you cannot pretend that social structures are natural when you can see how constructed they are. This is not superiority. It is a specific kind of sight that comes with its own burden. Your personal mythology must hold this tension. You are singular, and you are one of many singular beings, each writing their own myth. Here is what most people never understand about personal mythology. It is not invented, it is discovered. You do not sit down and decide to be the hermit. You look back at your life and recognize that you have been withdrawing not from weakness, but from necessity, that you have been carrying a lantern into darkness, that you have been doing the work of illumination alone, because that is the only way it can be done. The mythology was already there. You are simply learning to read it. This is the power of the INFJ Archetypes framework. It gives you language for the patterns you have been living without names. When you recognize yourself as the seer, you are not adopting a role. You are acknowledging what has always been true. You perceive what others cannot. You know things you should not know. You watch people walk toward cliffs you mapped months ago, and they do not believe you when you try to warn them. This is not metaphor. This is your lived experience, given an archetypal structure. And once you have that structure, once you can name the pattern, you can begin to shape it consciously. You can recognize when you are in wounded healer territory and make choices about whether to absorb the pain or whether to hold boundary. You can see when you are slipping into the shadow of the shapeshifter, wearing so many faces that you have lost contact with your own. Personal mythology is not about creating a perfect story. It is about authoring the story you are already living with awareness and intention. The final piece is understanding that your personal mythology is not static. It evolves. The archetype you are living today is not the archetype you were living 5 years ago. The seeker becomes the hermit, becomes the guardian of thresholds. These are not separate identities. They are chapters in a single mythic life, and you are the only one who can track the progression. No one else has been paying attention the way you have. No one else has felt the shifts the way you have. This is why borrowed myths fail. They give you a character frozen in time. Athena is always wise. Persephone is always returning from the underworld. But you are not always anything. You are in motion, and your mythology must be spacious enough to hold that motion. It must be a living document that changes as you change, that grows as you grow, that deepens as you descend. This is individuation, not becoming a fixed self, but becoming increasingly able to perceive and articulate the self you are becoming. Jung spent his entire life writing his personal mythology. He called it the Red Book, and it was never finished because the work of becoming is never finished. You are doing this same work every time you look at your life and ask, what is the pattern, what is the thread, what has the story been trying to tell you all along? If this video names something you have been living without language, I want to know which archetype you recognized yourself in. Are you the seeker still searching for home? The exile who has made peace with the threshold? The wounded healer learning to hold your own pain whilst you hold others? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring the territory of personal mythology, the unique patterns that make you unmistakably yourself, subscribe. This is Power and Myth. You are not too much. You are unmistakable. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.